He found 40 meridians before they discontinued the research. Now, what are the meridians? They're collections of current of the electricity flowing back to the brain, goes up the duramater, which is the outer leathery sheath that goes around the spinal cord and up to the brain. So that completes the circuit. So that's the positive end of the circuit, and the negative end of the circuit that flows out as on the motor and sensory nerves over the Schwann cells on the outside of the nerves. Now that we know that this circuit is there, how does it work? Well, we know that if you had to have a continual current flow, a DC current flow, you'd have to have too big a brain or too big a head to carry around on your shoulders. So we are made so that we have a very efficient system. And this system is a pulsed electromagnetic system which pulses at harmonics of frequencies of the different tissues of the body. Your liver has a different frequency than your muscles, and different than the stomach. And so when the body wants to target a particular area of the body, it can actually put out a frequency, which is a harmonic of that, and it will pulse it so that you get what we call magnetic resonance. Now, magnetic resonance is a way of getting, you might say, free energy. Free energy is wonderful stuff because everybody's looking for free energy, and in the case of your body, you get a dramatic enhancement of the amount of molecular action in the tissues where you're resonating them from the brain. Now, you need to understand how this works. As you can see from the diagram here, which is animated, that every so many orbits of the electrons around an atom, the electrons more or less line up, and that makes that side of the atom quite negative. And then you have a nerve by it, and whenever those line up, if that nerve turns on and puts on a pulsed electromagnetic field, which is negative, well, then you're going to get a push because the two are negative, the electrons and the magnetic field, and so they push each other. And that gives those electrons a big shove, and it gives the atom a big shove. So it, again, enhances molecular action. And when we enhance molecular action, then we enhance chemical reactions. Now, a good example of this is when you have a child on a swing, and if you push them, and you push them all the way under and run all the way underneath them, pushing them, you soon wear out. But if you wait until they get it just the right place and give them a push, it takes very little energy on your part, and you can get them to go higher and higher. And this is really what we're doing here, pushing at the right moment to get the atoms to move at a much greater intensity. Now we need to look at the clinical side of this. How does this enhancement of body chemistry really affect the body in disease and in health? Now remember, we're talking about the Earth's magnetic field affecting you, and we're talking about the brain's electromagnetic field. The two of them work together, and one supplements the other. Now we need to have a look at some diagrams and some slides here. First, we have two slides showing the blood of a tired truck driver. Now, he had lost the charge on the cell wall of the red blood cells, so they're sticking together. The red blood cells are very sticky, and if they aren't charged up, they won't repel each other. They'll just stick to each other. Now, this is called the Rouleau effect, or clumping of the blood, and it's an indication of fatigue. People with chronic fatigue have their blood, no matter what time of the day, their blood looks like this. Now, in laying on a unidirectional magnetic field going the right way through his body for only 20 minutes, these cells are all charged up, the cell wall is charged up, and look what you have here. You have the cells repelling, picking up oxygen all the way around. Now, how does this work? Well, it works by enhancing the chemical reactions in the mitochondria of the cell. What do you mean by that? Well, simply, we have a little thing in there called the Krebs cycle where we make ATP. ATP is made out of ADP, and it involves making a high energy compound which runs the sodium-potassium pump, which charges up the cell wall. Now, if you don't make enough ATP, well, then you lose the charge on the cell wall and you have the red blood cells sticking together. Now, this is just one indication of an enhancement of chemical reactions in the body. And we wondered if this is only when you lay down on the pad, or you're only getting this benefit, or do you build better cells, or do you store up these enzymes that you make when you're on the magnetic pad? So we did a study of people, 10 people over a 4-month period, and did pulse oximeter studies on them at 7 o'clock at night. This is after they'd been out and been active all day, and we wondered if the cells are going to be more efficient at that time. And as you can see from this slide, we actually got a 1% increase in oxygen level in their blood, but we got a 7.2% decrease in the heart rate. Now, one's a reciprocal of the other, and so these people actually had about an 8% advantage after 4 months of laying on the magnetic bed over the people before they started. So this gives you a little idea that we can build better bodies in an electromagnetic field or a magnetic field that is enhanced. Now, in review again, if we speed up the electrons, then we enhance chemical reactions. We also cause precession, which enhances chemical reactions. All of this then should have an effect on your ability to lift weight or to do exercise. So we started out with athletes. We took an athlete who was getting what we call VO2 max studies done at the university. Now, VO2 max is measured by, or really what it is they put a subject on a treadmill, and they have him run as fast as he can, and they have an oxygen mask hooked up to his face, which is hooked up to a machine which measures the amount of oxygen he's using. And at the point where he can't keep up any longer, that's his maximum, and it'll show the maximum amount of oxygen his body is using at that point. In this study with this gentleman over a 13-week period, the results were rather amazing. He had a 30% increase in VO2 max during that time. That meant that his body was utilizing that much more oxygen. Also, he had a 20% increase in strength, which is fairly phenomenal. Now, this coach of this man knew Mr. Canada. So Mr. Canada came to my office and he said, look, I heard about what you're doing with this competitor of mine. I have a proposition for you. You give me one of those futons with the magnets in it, and I'm training for the North American Championship over the next 6 weeks. Now, if I can do more work, in other words, do more repetitions, lifting the same amount of weight, which takes more oxygen, obviously, to lift more faster. So if I can lift more weight without any increase in heart rate, then I'll believe what you're doing. He says, I'm a former science teacher, and I think this is just way too easy. So over the next 6 weeks, he and his wife, who were both bodybuilders, slept on the magnetic pad, and to his amazement, he was able to increase his reps by 40% without any increase in heart rate. This meant that the efficiency of his chemistry in his body was up by 40%. He didn't have to have any more oxygen going in and to do more work, because it takes oxygen to do work. That's part of the chemistry. Now, at the end of the experiment, he came in and he said, well, I lost 7 pounds of fat and gained 7 pounds of muscle. But he said the big payoff was that 80% of my post-exercise soreness was completely eliminated. He said it used to be hell in this business because without pain there was no gain or even to maintain. But he says, now I know that the next day I'm not going to be hurting. And so this is a wonderful thing for the weightlifters.